What about the Power Rangers?
The Power Rangers?
Yes, they'd be great hunters.
If by great you mean overpowered.
Look, the monsters are threats. I don't care if a full-on Mechazord comes down to kill them.
Fine, I'll ask them.
Really?
No, of course not.
Ladies, gentlemen, and masters of all
ages, the Monster Hunter series has a rich history of interesting crossovers with other games, and even things that aren't games. Everything from Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker having their own created large monster in a Monster Hunter environment in their game with Velociprey running around, to the Pizza Hut longsword that you could get in Monster Hunter Frontier for ordering a pizza in Japan during a certain time period. Of course, as a result, this means that there are just sort of countless options. The world is our oyster when it comes to potential Monster Hunter crossovers, because if Capcom can work something out with literally Pizza Hut, then anything is really possible. We could have crossovers with the Cars movies, for fuck's sake, and have a unique quest where all the hunters are cars and the monsters are cars, and okay, maybe that's crazy, just forget I said that, but it does beg the question, what are some other games or series of fiction in general, the mediums, that would make great crossovers with Monster Hunter in general? Today, I'm going to talk about 5 that I personally think would work particularly well. So let's start off then with number 1. Elden Ring. This could go for any of the Soulsborne series really, or even all of the Soulsborne series, but the main thing that I want to say here is it's just sort of crazy to me that, of all things, Capcom and From Software haven't done a proper in-game collaboration in the past of this sort. People compare these games all the time, even though they have clear and notable differences between them. But that said, generally there's a lot of overlap in the fan bases, the player bases, and that's for a reason. And there are tons of creatures from Elden Ring that I would love to fight in a Monster Hunter game. For example, let's talk about the Falling Star Beasts. These are gravity magic oxen, essentially just meteors that fell onto the earth and then took life and shape in the form of magnetic ore beasts. They charge around a lot, sort of like a bulldrome do, but they have a host of more interesting attacks, like a tail swipe that can extend mid-swipe, it can rip up the ground to throw it at you, and in general, it's just a really neat creature that I could see done interestingly in a Monster Hunter type of context. There's also stuff like the magma worm bosses, which are big, flat, four-legged lizards that are awesome, and they spit up magma on the ground all around them, and at certain points they will stand up and start using a sword in one hand, which is just cool to think about as a Monster Hunter situation as well. A giant lizard that can stand up in the middle of the fight on 2 legs and start swinging a sword at you. No, they may not be monsters quite as we know monsters in our series, but that is sort of what crossovers are for. It's less about matching up with the lore and fitting in with the universe, and more just about creating fun and unique situations that can fit the gameplay more than anything else. Number 2. Pokemon. Yes, I know, not only is Pokemon very tight about sharing their IP in other ways, but there's a big fundamental difference between Monster Hunter and Pokemon. They work with the monsters to fight other monsters in a sort of playful, game type of way, and we full-on hunt things to death. And, well, it wouldn't exactly be great for the Pokemon brand if they gave us some Pokemon to brutally murder on screen, and yet, at the same time, how cool would it be to hunt a full-on Venusaur in Monster Hunter? A Blastoise! Yes, I'm going basic because I think a lot of the earlier generation Pokemon would actually sort of fit in the Monster Hunter world. Maybe they could even just make it capture only quests and not actually kill them. I think it would be a lot of fun to be able to hunt Pokemon, okay? Of course, they could do a bit of a lesser collaboration event even, something like if the endemic life system from World ever comes back, we could just get a quest that is to capture a certain number of certain Pokemon, put them in as endemic life on different parts of the map that fit their biology, and give us a neat little like Pokeball animation effect to replace the capture net during those hunts. I think that'd be really fun. There are multiple ways to do crossovers, and while my favorites are obviously the ones that give us full-on new hunts, new proper monsters, it would still also be a lot of fun to just do something smaller like that. Number 3.
An enormous head.
Shadow of the Colossus. This one almost seems like a match made in heaven. A game about slaying absolutely massive godlike creatures, and each and every Colossus in this series could make an entertaining Monster Hunter fight too, in my opinion. Sure, again, most actual collaborations that Monster Hunter has done don't necessarily result in full-on monsters being added, but some of them have in the past, and so of course we want to imagine the best, the greatest possibilities. Something like the gigantic underwater electric eel fight. Of course it would have to change with Monster Hunter in mind, but just the concept of standing on the back of a creature as it swims through the water, maybe you'd have to interact actively with wing drakes to get them to fly around above instead of grabbing onto the creature when it isn't surfacing. I can just completely picture the badassery that would take place during a Shadow of the Colossus level fight, but with the Monster Hunter combat system in mind. Sure, a lot of things would have to change to make it actually make sense. After all, Shadow of the Colossus is almost more of a puzzle game than a hunting game, making you work out different strategies and weaknesses choices based on environmental factors, but the designs of the creatures are just so striking that I would be amazed if Monster Hunter couldn't work out an awesome way to make them function if they put their heads into it, just because of how awesome it would be. Number 4.
Get in the boat, boy. Boy, 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 boy.
God of War. This is another one that just sort of seems like a natural combo in my mind. Obviously, God of War is majoritarily based on humanoid enemies being, gods themselves. However, there are a number of massive mythical beasties that would be much more fitting to the Monster Hunter setting, honestly. Things like Norse lightning dragons is a great example, or maybe like a giant scorpion is more your style. Honestly, the biggest thing that I would actually want, and I know this is a total pipe dream, is something like actually fully functional chain blades in Monster Hunter. I know this would be a ridiculous ask, and even the concept is sort of silly, as Monster Hunter never has and probably never should add a full-on weapon class through a collaboration, but to me there are few fictional weapons that you could argue are cooler than chain blades. Just the ability to have swords that you throw at a distance and then pull yourselves in, they're just an awesome concept, and I've always thought that they would fit incredibly into the Monster Hunter series. Ignoring that though, for obvious reasons, we could get something like Atreus from the new God of War game as a palico, just for fun, an actual child following you around and helping you hunt instead of a cat, or again, the monsters within this series being redesigned in a Monster Hunter context still works fantastically. I mean, we could even get like a Hydra if they felt like it. As I've always said, I would love to fight a multi-headed monster in Monster Hunter. I just think it'd be a really fun combat experience, even if it would be a little bit weird to balance with things like how hit zones work and everything. Number 5. Monster Hunter Spinoffs. By this, of course, I mean games like Monster Hunter Stories or Monster Hunter Explore, specifically. These types of Monster Hunter games create their own unique monsters that have never come to the main series to any of the actual action gameplay hunting style games. And it's honestly a bit of a shame. Spoilers for Stories 2 incoming, but the final boss, Ultura, would be an incredible fight in the mainline series. This creature slowly unfurls its wings, changing which elements it is weak to and creating one hell of a unique fight. Controlling light as an element, it is a spectacle and a half to fight in its own game, and I can only imagine the ridiculousness of fighting this in the main series. It could be almost Black Dragon level, potentially. But I'm not just talking about this monster or this game, because there are ones like Nefgarmat from Explore that are just absolutely gorgeous and inspired designs that would love to be able to fight properly and see given a proper moveset. Of course, they exist within their own worlds, but their worlds are still Monster Hunter. They are owned by Capcom, and so of all things that I mentioned today, these types of monsters would in theory be the easiest ones to actually bring over and add to the main series. Hell, we could even get Watermelon Uragon if you'd like. I mean, if there is one way to make me actually like Uragon, it is to just make him a giant watermelon monster. Who could dislike that giant watermelon face? All in all, this is just sort of me musing about possibilities for the future of the series. One thing that Monster Hunter World did incredibly was its crossovers with other games, arguably better than any other Monster Hunter game has managed to do in the past. With things like the Final Fantasy events and the Witcher quests, we got multiple new monsters added to the game from different series of fiction, and one that completely changed the concept of a hunt and added almost MMO raiding elements to it, and one that was essentially a humanoid tree devil, so it's hard to say that anything is truly off limits anymore. I have incredible hopes for the future, and I can't wait to see what the team actually has in mind, but these are 5 different fictional works outside of the main Monster Hunter series that I think could be absolutely amazing if they crossed over into Monster Hunter itself, into the main games. I hope you've enjoyed this discussion, and of course, mention any other series that you think would be great collaborations with Monster Hunter in the comments down below. I would love to hear more. Like if you like the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.